man in a trench coat in the dark. A woman's lost a kid sleeping in the park. Rag suits, daggers, Park Avenue. Everybody wants to talk to you about just some BS of there. Just some BS. Just some BS of yours. Just some BS. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS of ours.
Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Just Some BS podcast. I'm your host along this wild and crazy journey, the American Nick, joined as always by the man with a plan, the beer doctor himself, Radovan. Beer doctor?
Anyway, enough of
Radovan.
That was in memoriam of because Happy New Year, by the way, but we'll get to that soon.
Yes.
That was in memoriam of the news that came out today that one of Sweden's most prominent far-right former Nazis and major tax evaders, and also founder of IKEA,
The entrepreneur number one.
Ingvar Kamprad has
Finally demised
died
at 91 years old.
at a ripe young age of 91.
Yeah. So for all of you out there listening who's ever purchased something from IKEA and been so pissed off because of having to try to put it together or extra screws or missing screws or anything, the founder and figurehead of that company has now passed away, so you can no longer curse him. You have to find a new person to scream profanities out.
No, IKEA is a charity, technically.
IKEA is a charity taken?
For tax reason. They're one of the world's most endowed and least philanthropic charities.
Wow. The rich getting richer. Speaking of rich people, did you hear about our good old friend Jeff Bezos?
No.
So
Didn't realize he was our friend.
Yeah, buddy. Good friend. I'm hoping he starts to go to patreon.com/justsomebspod. So in Seattle, he opened up a cashless grocery store for shopping.
Shoplifter's paradise for you.
No, because each time you pick it up, it automatically scans the item onto an app on your phone. And when you leave, it just charges you.
Oh.
Like, have you ever been to a hotel where when you remove something, it charges the hotel room?
No.
Like, you ever been into the minibar? Okay, for those of you who've never been to Las Vegas minibars are set up with little buttons underneath, whether it's food or booze, even a Snickers. So what it does is when you lift it up, it releases the pressure and your room is automatically charged. Well, it's the same thing that's going on with this. Each item that's on the shelves will be, once you remove it from the shelf, it is added to your quote-unquote shopping basket.
Sure, but how does it know who picks it up?
Near what, NFR? Is that what?
Right. So this is not a product that would work in France if Nutella is on discount.
No, not at all.
Because I mean, if you have like 100 people battling for the 10 bottles of Nutella.
I watched the videos and saw old French women throwing elbows like they were, high-end Muay Thai. It was fantastic to watch.
In all fairness, I thought, when I was reading about it, so for those of you who don't know, France is a country still, and populated by people who are known as the French. And they have these things called shops, which are much like the shops you will see in civilized countries. And on the shelves. Don't worry, we're fine. No one French speaks English, so they can't possibly listen. And there's a product called Nutella, which is kind of like a chocolatey, nutty thing done by the same people who do Ferrero Rocher, and it's quite good. And that went on a discount, and it caused massive, what has been dubbed Nutella riots across France. It was one supermarket chain that made this discount, and people just went wild, queuing up, fighting. People ended up with bruises. People ended up in hospital because of the violent fighting that ensued when they were trying to grab the discounted Nutella, which kind of made me go, your usual reaction. I think most of us will have the reaction of. So I reacted to it as I assume most people who have just heard the story, I've read about it when it was in the news, end of civilization, what have we come to, that's pathetic, I wouldn't behave like that, etc. And then I saw the fucking discount.
75%.
Yeah, it was from almost €5 to $1.50. And I was looking at, flights to France. Because, there was one granny who bought something like 20 bottles of it. Because that's a great price. I'd hurt other people for that.
It made me think back to things that used to happen in the U.S. when,
Black Friday.
Well, not just Black Friday. Cabbage Patch Kids. When they first came out back in the 80s, I recall being at Sears with my mother as a child. And, of course, I didn't want Cabbage Patch Kids.
Could you explain Sears for people under 40?
Sears is now a defunct, bankrupt company that does not pay their bills, that used to be the be-all, end-all for every product that you would need for your home and service. And funny enough, you know how Sears was started?
No.
Sears, not the Robux guys, but the Sears guy, he used to work as a train engineer. And what he would do is he would take the lost and found, and after 30 days, he would take it, because you're allowed to, and he'd sell it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And that's how he started Sears. And then teamed up with Robux and Sears Robux.
That's much like Amazon started and all of their eBay, all of these places.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, Sears, if you could imagine that if Amazon had a shape, if you could touch Amazon,
yeah,
that's what Sears was.
Exactly. So I'm there with my mother, and of course I'm a boy, so I didn't want Cabbage Patch Kids, but there were parents going. The only way I could describe it to where people could understand, think The Purge, and that would be the best description you could have. No, I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
I saw grown men and grown women punch each other in the face. Not just punch, physically punch each other in the face, trying to get these Cabbage Patch dolls. And this in turn happened with the Nutella. Now I ask you, Radovan, you're not a overly addicted person. There's nothing that you pine for that you need to have. Is there any item that if it went on sale for normal price, anywhere between, say, 18 and 20 quid, and say it was £1, is there anything that you could get violent for?
No.
Nothing.
No. If it was just pay. I see. This is why I don't. I mean, I'm kind of the anti-shopper. Also, I guess a shopping owner's wet dream in that I generally refuse to go shopping during sales. I don't look for discount. I shop things at full price, not because I'm particularly wealthy, not because I'm mentally ill. To me, shopping is enough of an irritant, it's enough of an annoying experience that I don't want to be swarmed by people. So if I deliberately go outside sales periods, there's fewer people and I can actually shop like a civilized person when I need to. So to me, that extra expense, it's sort of like getting extra legroom on a flight. It's worth it. Now, unfortunately, in this day and age of marketing, periods when sales aren't happening just don't happen anymore. Everything is on perma sale, everything is always discounted, everything must go now. So I just stopped shopping, which is why I continuously wear clothes that I've had for about 15 years now.
I noticed that as well. The other day I haven't...
This shirt I've had for 15 years.
Well, this one I've had for 4.5. So, yeah, I haven't bought new clothes. Let's see, I've been back in this country over a year now, and the only thing I've bought is a waterproof coat to wear when it rains and I'm riding my bike.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I need to actually sit down and go shopping. But back to what I was saying with Mr. Bezos. So he opened up the shop. There was a ton of great news about it.
That was a bloody digression and a half we did.
And when he did,
Not like us.
I know, but his net worth jumped 2.8 billion pounds in one day. Now,
so can we open a contactless shop?
yeah, apparently that's the way to go. Amazon go. But the funny thing was there was an economist who sat down to try to figure out the relation. So every single cashier in America, if you take their annual salary and add them all together, every single cashier that works at every single supermarket in the entire United States,
Yes.
110 million. That's a total salary for an entire year for every single cashier in the United States.
That's not that much.
Yeah, exactly. And he made 2.8 billion in one day.
So I mean, is the shop, because you don't need staff, is the shop significantly cheaper?
Not significantly. It's Amazon prices. So
I mean, Amazon prices, again, Amazon is one of those things that permanently seems to have a discount.
yeah, and that's just it. They're not really discounted. They're in that Walmart kind of pricing range, i.e. Asda, where they price things as low as...
Is Asda Walmart?
Yeah, Asda is owned by Walmart. They're part of the that's why the Waltons love the UK. All three of the Walton kids that are worth 30-something billion pounds each. When the first Asda store opened here, the percentage that they made, like annual growth from year to year, outstretches even that in the U.S. And I mean, the U.S. Walmart people just go to Walmart for everything.
Yeah, I need to. I don't shop at Asda, but occasionally, when I'm sort of out and about in the country, I occasionally go. I need to stop doing that.
Well, see, the only reason why I'll go to Asda is I'll go to the one in Clapham Junction because it's the only store that's somewhat near here that's open 24 hours. That's the only reason why I will even walk in that shop is because it is open 24 hours.
So, are you done with Bezos? Because I think we need to address the elephant, the Dumbo in the room, i.e. you. Have you uploaded our Metal Machine podcast?
No, didn't upload the Metal Machine podcast.
So some of you might notice there has been a slight break in our broadcasting.
Well,
it's not that we haven't been recording.
we only recorded once.
We have, but we had this new intern technical engineer. Let's call him Mick. No relation to Nick, because Nick, I would like to think, is not an utter idiot and moron and knows how to record things because he has been doing it for a while. So anyway, Mick, for one episode, we thought, let's give him, we were recording an episode on New Year's Eve with the idea of making a New Year's episode. It was a bit of a longer one. It was about 2 hours. We talked about a lot of interesting things. I thought it was hilarious, quite possibly, dare I say, best episode we have ever done by a wide margin. It had everything. It had drama, it had humor, it had interesting facts. It was like, that's what I would imagine that a model podcast episode would be like. That's where we strive. And I was so proud of it that we finished it and it was going out. And I thought it felt really good. And I thought maybe this is the one I could send my friends because it was just so bloody good. And we're not going to play you a clip of it.
I could put a clip in.
Oh
here.
yeah, put a clip in there.
Okay.
But I'll do my best impression of it.
Okay.
That's what it was for 2 hours. So we promptly fired Mick.
Yeah, he's no
and
longer
revoked his visa and sent him back on his way.
Yeah.
And Nick is back at the helm, and hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I tested out the mic prior to Radovan getting down to the JSBS Studio South. Confirmed that what the issue was, and
Yeah.
won't be having that problem anymore.
Yeah. So we're not going to recreate the episode because there's different stuff, and because we're in Studio South, some of the format changes, etc. But it's probably for the better, because it was a long one.
Yeah,
Even though it was brilliant. But we will try to cover some of the things. Obviously, not as much humor. We're not as sharp as we were then. But it is what it is. So, because that was our New Year's episode, and...
Happy New Year.
Because it didn't happen, so... I mean, we talked about resolution and said, firstly, Happy New Year, listener. Good to see you. Apologize for the delay. It's certainly not my fault, because we hadn't recorded. We had recorded an episode.
Wow. You've been gone for 3 weeks, and now all of a sudden you're just blaming everything on me.
No, I'm not blaming everything on you. I'm blaming the fact that our perfect episode was not recorded properly on our intern Mick. My therapist has advised me, instead of sort of channeling my aggression towards real people, to fictionalize them, because she said, in her words, you're so psychotic, another imaginary character won't help, and it's literally what's keeping you from murdering the world.
Wow. So,
yeah.
Anything fun happened in your life the last couple weeks?
Was that a leading question?
No, just a you know. Yeah, I had a fun week.
Yeah, Nick saw his first vagina.
No, not my first one.
Second.
I did see one of those. But no, I saw a dead body. And the scary thing about it, and the thing that's a bit weird...
just to clarify one thing before people start jumping into, because I could already hear Cletus thinking, one of my guys. No, the vagina and the dead body are two separate bodies. The vagina was alive. Nick did not get close enough to the vagina of the dead body. Two separate things.
No, I believe that the dead body wasn't male.
I hope.
No, I did not.
I did, okay.
No, I where I work in Canary Wharf, there, it's the mecca of banking and accounting and hedge funds. You got Goldman Sachs. I happened to go out on lunch, and as I do on my lunch break, I take a little walk along the channel, because it's, normally fresh air, and as long as I take a lunch after like 2 o'clock, there's nobody there. So it's nice, because I can just walk in peace, and there's not a bunch of people sitting there playing on their phones or talking or being annoying. I can just have my headphones on, I'll be listening to a podcast or something, and I can just stroll down. And I'm walking by, and I look to my left, and I look in the water, and I think, what is that? And I continue walking, and I continue looking, and...
Well, is this the vagina story or the dead body story?
The dead body story.
So that was a dead body, Nick?
Yes, it was a dead body. But I didn't realize it was a dead body until I got a little bit closer to where I was actually straight in line with it. And I look, and I went... And I audibly said it, and there happened to be a guy walking by as I audibly said it, and I guess it was just reactionary. Because I went, that's a dead body. And I said it loud enough that he said, excuse me? And I turned, and I took my headphone out, and then I pointed and said, that's a dead body. And he goes... How do you know it's dead? Well, first off, it was floating face down. I don't imagine that somebody who was floating face down was alive. He wasn't snorkeling in that area. That water is not very clean, and you're not going to see pretty fish. And to which the gentleman went to go take his shoes off like he was going to get in that water, and I reminded him that he'd probably get the plague if he went into that water.
It's actually quite clean, the Thames.
No, this isn't the Thames. This is the channel off the Thames.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just it. This is where all the little... every maritime ship that comes in from other countries, this is where they post up. So it tends to be pretty oily. Like, you can see the oil on top of the water.
Right.
So it tends to be pretty nasty looking. And then...
so what was the deceased... Was it a man?
Yes, it was a man.
What was he wearing?
A coat... he still had Apple headphones in, like the ones that you get when you buy your iPhone. Right. It looked like he had a rucksack on his back.
So this wasn't this was not that it, I mean, but this wasn't a drunken person accidentally falling.
I have no idea, like, how they would have gotten in there. The headphones still being in was the thing that kind of got me, because eventually over time you'd figure that the ears would kind of release or stress or something in the water, and the headphones would fall out. That would be my assumption, because they don't fit that good to begin with. I mean, at least not in my ears. Yeah, big shouts to Apple on their headphones because apparently they can even stay in dead bodies. I don't know.
Wow, I think Nick has just stumbled upon the next advertising campaign.
Yeah, I know.
So good, you're good to die for.
Hey, Tim Cook, give me a call. I can hook you up. Send an email, info@js, or no.
Don't tell me you took pictures.
Oh, no, God, no. I realized, went through the entire conversation. He called the police. Police finally showed up.
Then again, I mean, if we posted that as a cover of the podcast episode, it probably would get some hits.
And this is what made me realize I've been trying very hard for the last year to work on empathy. We all know that I don't have any. I just don't. And so it's been like a matter of acting, like I'm on stage whenever empathy. Hence the reason why I think it's pretty odd talking to people about this. It was, the only thing I could think was, would I want my family members to see me on social media because some idiot took a picture of me when I was dead?
Yes.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I didn't take photos. There was some random guy that came by that was taking photos, and I searched online and I couldn't find the pictures of it, so luckily that guy didn't post it. But that was the same query that all the 20-somethings that work in my office when I came back and had to explain why my half-hour lunch that I was going to take turned into about an hour and 45 minutes.
Could have been the killer.
What?
Could have been the killer.
Well, he stuck around for the police to get there, so if he was smart, then he was
hiding in plain sight.
Could be. The part that really causes me a bit of concern, I haven't seen anything in the news about it.
Well, I mean, murders happen. I mean, deaths happen every night.
But this was one of those weird, and a lot of people started coming out. There's a lot of private yachts, like when I say yachts, I mean really big ships that are private ships that also port right there. And the workers from there came running over during this whole thing. So it ended up being what was me just walking by turned into about 40 people standing around asking questions.
Okay. Nick, I'll revert to my natural accent now.
Yep.
Nick, brother, just don't ask many questions. Let this one go. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, we buddies?
Yes.
We alive buddies?
Yes, we're live buddies.
Look, good. You saw that body. Terrible accident. Not worth news. Not worth digging for. Not worth dying for. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. Next story.
All of a sudden, you become a Russian mobster. Interesting. Oh, okay. If you say so.
It's the accent I adopt whenever I want anything done.
Oh,
you should see how much quicker service in restaurants is.
I can imagine that all of a sudden people respond to, "Oh, yes, sir. Okay, right away." Yes.
Excuse me, you called me what when you ran into me?
All right, so that was my week, but there's been some interesting things happening in the world that I wanted to get your take on.
Okay. Oh boy.
5 Britons arrested for pornographic dancing in Cambodia.
What?
So 5 Britons are among a group of 10 foreigners arrested in Cambodia for singing and dancing pornographically following a crackdown at popular tourist sites.
Okay.
The group of 8 men and 2 women ranging in ages from 19 to 35 were arrested on Thursday at a villa in Siem Reap, the town near the ancient ruins of Angkor Wat, and appeared in court 3 days later. Cambodian police released images online that appeared to show the clothed and laughing tourists, some in suggestive sexual positions.
Okay.
The 10 suspects were charged with producing pornographic pictures and material, which can carry a sentence up to 12 months in a Cambodian jail.
What other jail?
It's a Cambodian jail.
Yeah, I always like how these news articles say, they're not just in jail. Cambodian jail. Well, yes, they're in Cambodia. What other jail? They're not going to send them to jail in Australia, are they?
Well, true. My question, though, now, as someone who And I think I know you well
dances
enough
in
to
a
know
pornographic way.
this. Exactly. Someone who does not dance in a pornographic way unless he's completely hammered. Oh, well, no. We do have the story of you crashing a wedding in Oval when you were completely hammered.
Yeah, true.
I imagine you were dancing and frolicking and being very suggestive with your body language. I know it's a cultural thing, and I get that. When you go to a different country, you have to abide by their cultures and their, laws. Should something like this even make news?
Well, I mean, news isn't what news used to be. I mean, is it? I mean, is it? Let's boil the story down. Is people come into country, break country's laws, suffer consequences for breaking laws. That's not really news, but I mean, news is what not necessarily sells these days. News is what clicks, and it's of course an interesting enough story to lots of people will be sharing that and sort of going, depending on which angle of the debate you're from, whether you're in the camp or the camp. But I mean, what can you say about it?
Yeah,
that story doesn't enlighten anybody about anything. But I mean, that's not what news hasn't been in a long time.
What do you think was the breaking point?
Of what?
Of news. When did it? I mean, I take a lot of blame because of, I think, American news has, if it bleeds, it leads, shock value, never really telling. Everything becomes an op-ed. It's no longer just reporting, both sides of the story. It's just a narrative that follows along a political line.
I mean, it's I guess it boils down to news as many things, say 50 years ago, 60 perhaps now, used to be a heavily regulated thing. And if you look at early BBC, those things, the early BBC programs fell into two categories: information and then some entertainment, but it was all very tightly controlled, sending out a particular message that the state wanted you to know, etc. That was a heavily curated format. Now, the problem with that, on one hand, you maintain a certain level of it. I mean, the old BBC programs, as many people attest to, are of very high standards, and you once you get over the quality issues of sound and picture, they're still of a very high standard. But it also reeks of one-sided censorship, which is incompatible with what we perceive to be a democratic society today. I mean, if you look at how we treat countries like with state censorship, such as China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, not Saudi Arabia, they're friends, free country, progress. Women can finally drive sometimes, but you know what I mean. How we perceive those countries as something lesser, as something that's still developing. They're not quite as developed or refined as us. So that perception has changed, and I guess the start of it is any medium that is then brought in to challenge the state-controlled media, and you can point to Murdoch of it, to Murdoch as the start of it, but really it predates Murdoch. It's when the first private media,
CNN.
I mean, you had newspapers as well, I guess, but I mean they were all part of the same kind of.
Hertz owned most of the newspapers in the U.S. or Rockefeller. I mean, it was those two were pretty much the driving force behind print media throughout the early 1900s in the U.S.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, you had scandals. I guess there was a mentality change where you had CNN. Yes, there's the 24-hour news cycle that what used to be news for 30 minutes, and you just took the most important story. Since you have to regurgitate stories over and over again, you basically need a new story every half hour to sustain that. And then you do have people like Murdoch who kind of broke the traditional rule book in that, you know, you don't report on the rich and wealthy because, well, we're all in this together, etc. We need to keep the kind of people need to believe that the rich and wealthy are better people, etc. And then he came in, and I can make money off of this. But I mean, the Sun started with a superficially noble aim, which was no one is above the power of the media, and the way you report about criminals, etc., you should be able to report about the criminality and depravity of the upper classes and upper middle classes. So that's what he did. It's just once that becomes an established part of the media landscape, where do you push then to sustain your sales? And that's basically what led from that to the hacking of phones of 12-year-olds, dead 12-year-olds, and then you have the internet, death of the print media, and just the ubiquitous news cycle, and you end up where we are.
It's funny.
But I mean, it's a known story.
You brought up someone in particular in Robert Murdoch and Rupert. And he now wants to make... Look, when it comes to advertising revenue for televised news and print, it's down. People are going to digital media.
Yeah.
He's now trying to get Facebook and Twitter to pay, meaning subsidize, the news. Because he's losing money. He can see that he's losing money. And now he's trying to convince politicians. In fact, he suggests Facebook should pay fees to authorize news sources. So if something happens and you report on it, and then someone shares it online because they think it's important for the world to know, Facebook should have to pay for it because Murdoch was too slow, too old, and too right-wing to understand technology and missed the boat, and now he feels like he should get subsidies for it.
So like a referral fee?
Yeah.
I mean...
But then Facebook will have to then police every single post that's going out. Meaning, no, this is the sharing thing. This is what he's trying to say. So if I saw something on Fox News, I would never share anything that I saw on Fox News.
But hypothetically.
Because, oh my God in heaven, I've never heard more fake news than Donald Trump actually opening his mouth and saying fake news than when you watch Fox News. I can't. It boggles my mind that people actually watch it. And then if you look at the demographics that they hit and the areas in which they are quote unquote number one in, it makes a lot of sense. It really does. I guarantee Cletus's mom, big fan of Fox News. Big fan. That 55 plus white middle America. That's the Fox News.
No, I mean news no longer is news. News is entertainment. So
exactly.
I mean, it is the illusion of information where people desire to be informed, but to actually be informed requires effort, and that's not what we as modern people, as millennials, but also people living in anywhere. People don't want to put effort into things. They want instant gratification. They want rewards. Therefore, by watching something like Fox News, it brings a debate down to a level that it's very easily understood. That's very easily soaked in. You can acquire it easily, but because it's presented as news, you feel that you are absorbing information and that you are a well-informed person. Therefore, as a well-informed person, your views are more difficult to challenge, and when someone challenges those views, you just accuse them of spreading lies because you are a well-informed person.
It's a weird thing, because I remember years ago when Russia Today first started their news network.
Fine news network. Probably the only fair and balanced viewpoint in
and that was just it. It was crazy that when they first started out, they actually did kind of report both sides.
Yeah.
Like that first month or so. I remember back, and it was weird because you would see a very left side, a very right side, a centrist side. You would see the actual news. And then when they realized they needed to generate revenue, they started leaning a bit more left.
Well, they're not even really. They're just pro Russian. But that's the funny thing is, in terms of, I mean, I would say even more so than the BBC, because the BBC is now, because people default to the BBC as the news source of
this country.
Even beyond, people respect the BBC. They default to the BBC as the stereotypical old school news source you can trust. As someone who's had BBC as their primary news source for a good 15 years, you can sense the change of it, and there was an Ofcom, which is media regulator in the UK. There was an analysis about 2-3 years ago, because people always accuse the BBC of bias, and Ofcom actually found people on the left accuse it of a right-wing bias, people on the right accuse it of a left-wing bias, which kind of shows that it's an impartial medium.
Yeah.
And Ofcom found that actually the BBC is not really biased in any particular political stance. The BBC is consistently biased pro-government.
Yeah.
Because government gives it money.
Yep.
That's where the BBC's funding comes from. So, as an organisation that's particularly in this day and age, in where the UK is one of the last governments in the world that still somehow maintains that austerity politics works, even though that is slowly changing now. But I mean, as a public funded organisation, you're fucking scared shitless, because they could just pull the plug and that's the end of the BBC. So you're not going to get fair reporting. So the BBC has kind of defaulted into this inoffensive, let's just report the things that everyone can agree on, which is basically why most BBC headlines are Donald Trump exists. Prince Harry is getting married, which you can't dispute. But they don't really go into heavy analysis. They try to do it, but they can't really go into heavy analysis because they're just trying to stay popular, and they are measured by the same yardstick as the Daily Mails of the world, where they have to generate hits to feel like they're worthwhile. So in fact, quite possibly the news organization that is, weirdly enough, the most like the news organizations of old is, guess which one?
Reddit?
No. Oh. Well, no, Reddit is popular. but Al Jazeera.
Ah.
Al Jazeera is one of the few organizations, because it's funded by oil.
Yeah.
And therefore it is Al Jazeera, weirdly enough, does not need to cave in popular pressure. Al Jazeera it's Qatar's news. It's an news organization in Qatar. It's widely respected, and all Qatar needs is that respect. It's like buying Chelsea or Manchester City. You don't need to make it to make a profit, or PSG. You don't need it to make profit. It's a reputational thing. It's a name. So Al Jazeera, weirdly enough, is free of commercialism, and therefore can actually offer not only balanced viewpoints, or even a single centrist viewpoint, but also in-depth investigations, which you just don't see on most other news channels. It's a bizarre situation where a privately owned oil-rich news organization is the sanest news organization out there. That's the state of the world.
I mean, the only other places that, and I don't think, because if you go through it and you watch it in depth, they don't do editing tricks. Meaning, if you look at Vice News and the things that they're doing for HBO, they did an in-depth look at Obama across his last campaign, like the last year he was in office, where he got real about, had I had a chance to redo it, I would have done Obamacare differently. They also had interviews with other senators, Republican senators, that were on the other side of it, and how they would have handled things differently. Hindsight's always 20/20. They did a great thing on the just devastation that's taking place in South America now that El Chapo's back in prison. They've also done in-depth with white supremacy in the South, and gave them a fair shake to explain their side of why they believe white supremacy is right. I think it's HBO Go is the ones that put them out, but if you want to see some real in-depth looks, I know they went to Russia for one, which was, I was watching that one going, there's no way in hell I would do that. Like, turn the cameras off, do this, do that. They drove them around to talk to people that were on the inside. you get to see, I mean, it's documentary filmmaking, but it's news related, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to show parts of the world that you don't see on, you know, the headlines today on BBC are triple death crash suspect CCTV released, and Donald Trump's talking to Piers Morgan on, I would have negotiated Brexit differently. Of course you would have, because you would have done everything differently, because, yeah.
He would have done yesterday differently if he could.
Well, everybody would have done it differently. Let's be honest. I don't know. I've made it a point now I read what my employee puts out on Twitter, because I'm still an American citizen and he is my employee and I don't work for him, he works for me. I read what he puts out on Twitter, and I see more and more a shady-ass businessman that conned 60 million people, and that con is slowly unraveling. I think a lot of people on both sides, they're like, oh, it's taken too long. It's wasted so much money. This is what the right's saying. It's, you know, they're searching for something that's not real, and the left's saying it's taking too long. They should do it faster. I don't think they understand how, like, an investigation into potential treason or impeachment or obstruction of justice, it takes a long time. It's not like, I know most people, I wasn't around for Watergate, that took a long time. That wasn't just like one day they went, oh, okay, yeah, there's hidden tapes in Nixon's office, let's get him out, and then he resigns. No, it took months and months and months to build that up. This isn't an overnight thing.
Yeah. There's a very good film about the Watergate scandal that kind of gives you the whole
process of it.
Chronology, called Bridge Over the River Kwai. So seek it out. Really good. Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like we like to do each and every week, because we get back to our roots. I like to look at what brought us together originally, which was beer. And this week in beer news, a good friend of ours, who spends far too much time going overseas, probably knows a little bit about this. And it's a beer so strong it's illegal across America is being re-released for its 10th anniversary. From the look on your face, I can see you don't know what I'm talking about. Described by its creator as the craft beer community's most renowned and sought-after extreme barrel-aged beer, Utopia.
No, Sam Adams, yeah.
Yes, Utopia's back.
I smelt it once. It smelled good.
For those of you that haven't smelt it or anything else, it's a 28% ABV. That's brew is reminiscent of rich vintage port, old cognac, or fine sherry, with notes of dark fruit, subtle sweetness, and a deep, rich, malty smoothness. So basically, not like your typical Sam Adams beer. Just to let you know, if you think you want to get a hold of it, it'll cost you $200 US, which right now is about, what, $40? 50?
What do you mean $40?
40 pounds.
Really? Has a dollar crash?
Oh, the dollar. Well, Trump made it a point to say he doesn't care if the dollar's weak, which, okay. And then Munchnick, who is the head of his little thing, came out at Davos and said, oh, no, the dollar being weak is fine. We're okay with the dollar being weak. When that happened, the pound went to 140... I want to say 142, 143.
I remember days when it was almost 2.
I remember those days as well, but it hasn't been this high since the day of Brexit. The day of Brexit, it was this high, and then the day after Brexit, of course, it crashed. Yeah. But it was this high the day of Brexit. So.
The one thing I noticed is that the pound isn't doing particularly well, but the thing about it, it's everyone else around it seems to be doing even worse. So I mean, I was looking for sort of hotels in Iran. I thought, oh my god, these are, in the guidebooks they're described as £150 a night. And I thought, oh, it looks nice, but there's no way I can afford that.
Yeah.
And then I actually checked the current prices and did the conversion.
Yeah. And
realised, oh, that's 75 now. It's not too bad. But
well, because I was talking with my mom, because she's coming over, and we're going to go to Morocco and Marrakesh and some Casablanca.
When's she coming over again?
April.
Oh, okay. When in April?
She's going to call me tonight, and we're going to figure it out.
Because I'm leaving on the 8th. Not that the listener needs to know any of this.
Inside stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. And then you're gone for what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
A month, yeah. 4 weeks, 28 days. If they let me in. They might not let me in at the airport, but we'll see.
Anyways, and so I started looking online. We deal with the company that I do my day job with. I deal with a lot of U.S. companies. And I had a bill come due. And it was for a specific program that one of the companies inside our business uses. And we were supposed to pay the bill back in November. Never got a notice. And I'm the one with the card. And finally it comes to me. And I look, and so I did the conversions real quick. And by waiting 2 months, 2 months' time, we ended up saving £160.
It's not bad.
Oh, it was fantastic. So I went to the boss and I was like, "Hey, I just saved you £160. And he goes, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Fantastic. What else in the U.S. do we have that we could spend money on right now?" I was like, "Unfortunately, we don't have a lot, but let's hope the dollar continues to dwindle and the pound stays strong, and then we'll be good, okay?" So that was...
But yeah, no, I mean, Sam Adams... I remember Utopia's being $120, so 200 is quite the... It's quite the hike. I wanted to buy one once.
Yeah?
Back when it was $120 and the pound was actually quite good and the dollar not so. So it would have cost about £60, which is still ridiculous for a beer. But I have paid that for a beer once before.
I paid that for a couple years ago on my birthday when we went out.
Yeah.
I know, because I remember looking at my credit card bill.
Yeah.
And realizing that somehow we ended up spending...
Yeah, you went for the AleSmith.
160 or 180 pounds inside a pub.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah, so I wanted to buy one, but unfortunately they don't export them.
Oh, so you couldn't even buy it here?
No, I contacted them directly and saying,
"Yeah,
can I get a bottle?" And they said, we don't, you can't, unless someone who brings it over. But you can't even. I couldn't even get someone to go to a shop.
Yeah.
And buy it and send it.
Yeah.
Because that is illegal in the States. You can't, apparently a beer that strong you can't just send over.
Oh wow.
So it would literally have to be someone who buys it and then flies over and brings it to me.
Oh, okay. That was the same kind of thing with my brother wanted me to get him some absinthe when I was in Prague, and I said, "Yeah, except for I wouldn't be able to send it to you."
Plus, it's not the absinthe that
it
used to be.
Exactly, and that's why I try to tell him you don't see the green fairy.
Yeah, it's just ethanol now.
Yeah, no, now it's not that silkworm. It is what it is. All right, so that was a bit of beer news. I have also in the news. You might know about this because it was on BBC. There has now been 11 school shootings in the United States in 2018.
What?
Yeah, it's. I know it's January 28th. Yeah, 11. So.
Wow. So they're so common they don't even make the news anymore.
Nope. So with that said, is it time to start arming police officers in the United States?
Police officers
Or teachers.
Teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, this is the slightly weird thing, right? In most European countries, including this one, because police officers are not normally armed.
Yes.
You have your armed police deployed at particular times, in particular locations, but otherwise,
Christmas, you see them.
But otherwise, police don't bear arms. So, is it time to start arming police officers? Is a legitimate question in most European countries, and one where a lot of people would go, well, no, that's mad. In the States, that's not even up for debate. It's, do we start arming teachers and then maybe nurses, accountants, doctors,
Garbage men.
presidents?
I just look. I get it. It's horrible. It's an epidemic, and it is an epidemic now. The gun lobbyists will continue to say, "Don't blame the gun, blame the person." The only thing is, I can't get over the fact that no, it was a person that pulled the trigger. So maybe don't blame the person, blame the finger. Whether it's a mental issue, it could be mental illness. But even still, having I think the ability for people to get a hold of them is the issue. Look, I understand the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I get it.
Do gun owners or sort of NRA people, do they refuse to take treatment for diabetes?
I have no idea.
Because with that sort of mentality, don't blame the gun, blame the person. Surely, if you have type 2 diabetes, which is the acquired diabetes, which is the lifestyle diabetes, which is the majority of diabetes, particularly in the States.
Yes.
Technically, that shouldn't be treated then, because don't blame the disease, but blame the person.
Okay.
Because I mean, it's the person who caused the disease, so why should you help them? It's their fucking fault. Send them to prison for ruining their body.
Well, I mean honestly, I think that might be an option. I just don't know. I grew up around guns. I know how to shoot guns. I'm a pretty good shot. My father was, and maybe it was because it was the 1980s and things were different. I don't know. My father said never point a gun at a human being unless you intend on killing them. And you better not intend on killing them unless they've hurt you or this family. There's no other reason to shoot somebody. If you're that angry with somebody, beat the shit out of them. Just hit them. I'd rather have you hit somebody than shoot somebody. It doesn't make sense for you to shoot them. You don't need to end someone's life. My mother always said, there will never be a handgun in this house because if there was, my father would have pissed her off enough that she would have shot him. And that's why she was thankful, because it takes too long to load a shotgun or a rifle and then bring it up and point it and do all that other stuff. So having a handgun in the house was a no-no, which my dad was very happy to agree with. But I don't... You need to have a driver's license to drive a car.
Yeah.
There's triple death crash suspect CCTV released. You have to go in and have your eyes checked. If you have any sort of mental disorder, mental issue, physical issue, i.e. epilepsy or narcolepsy or any kind of medical thing, it's required by law for your doctor to inform the Department of Motor Vehicles, and they will pull your license, and then you have to go get a doctor's release in order to be able to drive a car. You go through school. You go through training. You're tested in order to drive a car. If you do not have a criminal record and you're over the age of 18, you can buy a gun. Just buy a gun. There's no testing. There's no nothing. And I know people be like, oh, well, what if there's an intruder in my house? Okay, that's fine. So you need a gun. You don't need a semi-automatic gun. If you need a semi-automatic gun, you need to go to a gun range because obviously you're a horrible shot and all you're doing is wasting money on bullets. It's just, I read the headline and they have this picture of teachers take part in faster active shooter training in Colorado in 2017. And I don't know, I had a lot of good teachers in high school. Teachers in which I respected. I had other teachers who I don't know how the hell they were teachers. I really don't. And some of them ended up not being teachers not long after I graduated because other people realized they shouldn't be teachers. I don't know if I want them having guns.
Look, I'm a reasonably soft-tempered man, despite of how I come across on this podcast. I don't get angry. I'm not a violent person, by any stretch of the imagination. That's why I have you around. I need violence committed. I go, Nick.
Nice.
But even I could, having done teaching back in the day, if I had a gun, I'd be like, if someone pissed me off, this was in Sweden. I had to like talk to them, and resolve the difference and find some sort of solution. Now, if I had a gun, I'd be like, bring it, you little shit. If I had a gun and I had all this training and I was so excited about tackling shooters, I'd be going like, come on. Who's feeling a bit frustrated? Who wants to make the news? Go on, give it a go.
Make it happen, Captain.
That's just encouraging people.
I mean,
you people have your military, right?
Yeah. Hold on. The U.S. spends more on defense than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of which are allies.
Yeah. See, so this is the thing, right? You have your military. Why do you have a military? Well, nominally, to protect your country against external threats, right? Self-defense.
Supposedly.
Yeah. So you have people to, if there's an intruder that comes into your country, you protect yourself against them.
Yeah.
You recognize that that's an important thing, much like a home intruder, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to protect it. Fine. If you have that mentality, fine. But in order to protect yourself against this foreign intruder, which usually happens in your front lawn in the Middle East, in the shed, apparently that's what
in the shed known as Syria.
Yeah. You give them lots of rigorous training, lots of background checks, you give them psychological tests, and to go, this person is mentally healthy enough and is prepared with the appropriate training so that he doesn't mistaken his daughter for an intruder, or when his girlfriend goes to the bathroom, it's not an intruder on Valentine's Day.
Sorry, call back to Pistorius.
Skip Pistorius for those under 10 amongst you, look it up. And also seek help. So that shit doesn't happen. So that, you behave like a rational human being when you're killing other people. So somehow the populace of the United States, embodied in your government, somehow decided, right, when it's foreigners coming in, we're going to behave like civilized people. But if it's us amongst each other, yeah, fuck it, purge. Just go for it. You don't need training. Just get a gun. How old are you? 5. Yeah, why not? It's Friday. Have a gun. I just don't understand the sort of that dichotomy that, if you go somewhere else, you go to a foreign country, or you're meant to protect the country, you need all this training and checks. And then any random person could just walk into a Walmart, grab themselves a gun, and just,
It doesn't. It's a debate that I think the last probably 50 years has continued to just resonate. I don't really get why it's that way, but unfortunately, I don't think it's ever going to change. Earlier, we mentioned good old Donald Trump.
By the way, I don't normally really follow this sort of thing, but I was watching his this sort of outcome of his meeting with Theresa May in Davos. It was quite funny when he's sort of saying, "Oh yeah, we share the same values, we have the same opinions on everything. We're really, really alike, and we really like each other." It's like, man, just you're not helping her. Anyway,
you're not helping her. Plus, you're not helping yourself in the States, because anybody in the States that looks up the way that Theresa May is, 40 million people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, that's good there." The other 200 million people that are voters are going to go, "What the fuck?" There was a flub. I need to try and find it. Give me 2 seconds. Pause. Come on, where is it? I know that. Okay. So, the 45th anniversary, I think, of Roe v. Wade was just the other day. Roe v. Wade, for those outside the U.S., was the landmark constitutional amendment in which the Supreme Court heard a case regarding abortion. Now, Donald Trump made it a point to make a speech on this day because he was trying to indoctrinate himself to the conservative anti-abortion. And this is what he said.
Now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong. It has to change.
Now,
I agree. I hate as someone who really doesn't really
like children,
like kids. Yeah, it's a bold political statement. I mean, it's a gamble because there's lots of people who don't like children. Particularly, when you're at a restaurant or you're traveling in the quiet coach or on a plane, etc. There's plenty of people who at some point in their life really would wish to kill all children. But wow. I mean, go Donald.
I understand he probably flubbed. But here's the deal, Donnie. You're not allowed to flub. You're just not.
I disagree.
No, because he's made it a point to force the world to listen to his diatribes. Meaning, he's always out there. He thinks he's the leader of the free world. And I hate to say this, George W. Bush was the leader of the free world. George Herbert Walker Bush was a leader of the free world. Ronald Reagan was a leader of the free world. Bill Clinton and his, fucking anything with a pulse was the leader of the free world. Barack Obama was the leader of the free world. Donald Trump is not the leader of the free world. He's just not. He's not respected enough among the democratic leaders and people in this world to be the leader anymore. America has lost that mantle of being the beacon of hope.
Yes.
It's gone now. And it's because of him. I'm not saying Hillary would have done any better. I didn't vote for her. I don't trust her. But I'm saying when you're going the lesser of two evils, which was America's unfortunate situation in the last election, you would have been better off just choosing a third party. Just picking somebody different. So that's the Philip box. And I wanted to see, I know you have some news articles, so let's get into what you have on tap, and then we'll get into my person. You're gonna like him. I think you feel at home with him. He might be your new favorite person.
Okay.
You and him might be buddies.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot to top Hitler in a box, but we'll see where we end up.
I think this guy might be right up there with Hitler in a box.
I've been excited too.
Oh yeah, I bet Hitler's really excited to be a part of this.
Okay. I had a few. Shit! I should have brought these up when we were talking about New Year's. Happy New Year's again.
Happy New Year's.
Let's pretend that we're New Year's. And no, it was about the various revelries around the world. For instance, there was a group of young white males, you'll be surprised, in New Zealand, where there are public drinking laws, who on New Year's Eve decided to build themselves an artificial island complete with a bench. They swam there, and because technically they claimed it's in international waters, the public drinking laws of New Zealand did not apply to them, and they got sloshed on the island on New Year's Eve. I'd like to commend them their dedication and name them as an early frontrunner of Time's Person of the Year.
That takes ingenuity, dedication.
Now, if there was a Time Anti-Person of the Year,
okay,
it would be the New Year's revelers in New York.
Oh, what they do now.
Well, you have there are several key places, spots around the world that are renowned for their New Year's celebrations.
Sydney, London, New York City.
Sydney with the bridge
The
and the
harbour.
Opera House.
Yes.
Then you have the Micronesia nations where it's the first people to celebrate New Year's.
Yeah.
You have London, fireworks. You have the New York fireworks. Slough in Jimmy's backyard. Always a good laugh.
Yeah.
Bootleg cider. Anyway, so those are the big ones. Or Rio de Janeiro, perhaps as well. Tokyo. Those are the big ones around the world. So each deals with them slightly differently. London was becoming so. I mean, London, because the fireworks are on the Thames, they're actually quite easy to observe.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Thames, being a river, has two banks. You could stand there, or you could just, on one of London's few hills or buildings, you could watch them from there. There's lots of places to watch them. People obviously want to be as close as possible, which was becoming a congestion and a security problem. Therefore, London introduced a ticketing scheme,
Yep.
which you need to apply for, and then you get in, and then it's a bit more managed. New York did not do that, does not do that. New York, first come, first serve, whoever's there is there. It's a more crowded, cramped.
Because everybody's trying to get in Times Square.
Exactly. Everyone wants to be at Times Square, and it's a square. It's not a river. It's not, you want to be there on Times Square because you have the ball dropping, and you have the Mariah Carey nip slip, or the singing malfunction, or whatever it is that she does every New Year's.
Since when is Mariah Carey showing her nipples?
Or was that Janet Jackson?
That was at the Super Bowl, and it was Janet Jackson. And it was Justin Timberlake who pulled it open, and yeah. Anyways.
But Mariah Carey had some sort of malfunction at a New Year's thing, didn't she?
I have no idea.
Yes, she did. Let's for the sake of our authority, let's say she did.
Okay. Fake news.
Anyway, so she, all that. So, if you want to see it, you need to get there early.
Yeah.
People, for whatever reason, travel to New York from around the world to see this.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who don't have consciousness yet, or have just acquired it in the last 27 days, what happens at New Year's is it's generally, the thing is at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the end of the day. That's when the day goes from 31st of December to 1st of January, or it goes from 30th December to 1st of January in leap years. Trying to be educational here. Shaping young minds. So it happens at midnight. So you know it's going to happen at the end of the day.
Yeah.
To be there on time, you need to queue from about 9 in the morning,
Okay.
which people do. Now, if you've ever been in a crowded spot, you'd know that it's kind of difficult once you're in a crowd to leave the crowd. So at 9, you have a crowd, which you can't move from.
Okay.
The thing is, at midnight,
Mm-hmm.
there are 15 hours
Yeah.
in between those two things.
Well, you need to bring food, you need to bring water, you
Yeah.
gotta have a way to go to the toilet.
Yeah. And how do you go to the toilet?
Well, I mean, there's, they have those little things to where you can wear them. Let me guess, adult diapers?
Adult diapers. Yep, there have been a number of revelers, including there was one from Japan who, in fact, they interviewed revelers. What do you do? How do you come prepared? And a lot of them were wearing adult diapers. Some of them were proud that by 3 p.m. they haven't used them. Some of them have used them. One Japanese tourist said, "I wish I had thought of that because I've peed my pants several times now and they're really stinky and I feel dirty. But I've come here all the way from Japan, so I'm not going to miss this." Imagine standing next to her.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Wow. I watched the movie Idiocracy years and years ago. I never thought that I'd actually be living in the movie.
Right, on to some good, positive news.
Alright.
Now I'm going to go through a few things that we've talked about in our famous episode that never was.
The lost episode.
The lost episode. Trying to recreate a bit of the magic, because there were some very interesting things that we talked about. Firstly, there has been a new study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. Now, this is a prospective study. So this is one where you take a group of people and you follow them up for, it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years, it could be decades. The longest running one, I think, is a few decades now. In this case, it was 29 years. They followed a large group of people. It was over 1,300 to see the impact of alcohol on Alzheimer's disease, dementia. Well, they found that moderate levels of drinking, so we're talking about 2, 3, 4 for men drinks a day, reduced the risk of Alzheimer's by 2 to 3-fold. So you're 2 to 3 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease if you are a moderate drinker. If you're an excessive drinker, so you go above that, then it depends how much you drink, because the more you go, the higher the risk you have of developing Wernicke-Korsakoff, which is its own alcohol-induced dementia. But the good news is that if you want to stay, your brain won't. And I should note that this was a study where they controlled for class, for lifestyle, for existing diseases, etc. People who don't drink have a higher chance of getting dementia. The mechanism is unknown. It's you can speculate about it, but the mechanism isn't known. It's just the results. If you look at people, those who drink moderately, 2 to 3 times less chance of a dementia, which are good enough numbers for me, because people say, there's now a campaign in the UK about how alcohol causes cancer. I can cut out cancer. I can deal with that. In fact, as long as I have a brain, I can even cope with cancer and be ready to die. When I start forgetting my own name, then I don't even want to be alive at that point. So I'm perfectly happy to get cancer and not dementia. So I'll chink to that.
I will say that the study was done by the University of California, San Diego, UCSD, a very reputable university out on the South Coast. They took into account, tracked the data from 1,334 elderly adults in a specific region of San Diego County, Rancho Bernardo, which is a white-collar, middle to upper middle class area between 1984 and 2013. So that's interesting, because I know exactly where that's at. It's just north of my mom. I did discuss with my
Lots
mom.
of very, very bright alcoholics, clearly.
I told my mom after we discussed this, "Ma, you need to start drinking a bit more. I can't have you getting Alzheimer's."
No, well, I mean, this comes back to the study we discussed on the old beer podcast years and years and years ago, which showed that people who actually drink moderately and heavily as well, not excessively heavily,
Tend to live longer.
As well. So this was, I mean, I guess mechanism is, if you drink, you just it's like the brain cells. It's like gym for them. It's. I mean, gym is equally pointless if you think about it. Gym is actually torturing yourself, because you're somewhere where you don't want to be, doing things that cause pain, that make you sweat, that make you hurt. Why would you be doing that to yourself? But that if I lift that, what are they called?
Barbell.
Yeah, those weight things. If I lift that long enough, next time I need to push a boulder when I'm trapped in a cave, or I need to assault a fellow human being to protect my country or my family or my home, unless I buy a gun, or live in a civilized country, I need that strength.
Yes.
And it's the same for alcohol and brain cells. It is like virgin act. Drinking 3 pints a day is like virgin active for your brain. You go there and the alcohol goes, oh come on brain, yeah, let's do this, you can do it, okay, come on, punch me 15 times now, 1 2 3 4, and the alcohol's like really perks up the brain cells, and the brain cells are like, whew, I'm tired. That's why you get drunk, and in the morning you get muscle aches, so you're hungover. The brain cells wake up and go, oh for fuck's sake, that was a heavy one, man. That personal trainer really gave us a beating yesterday, but I feel good, man. I feel good. I could take on the world. That's you emerging from the hangover. And when the time comes, when you're 65, 75, 85, and the dementia cells creep in, the amyloid plaques, and they'll go, whoa, this is our time now. Well, you have the neighborhood watch of the alcohol-trained brain cells approaching these guys and going, not on our watch, cowboy. Not on our watch.
I just wish this would have been video so everybody could have seen you do your little walk and your dance and then your workout routine. There's a running joke a comedian used to say years and years ago. I probably saw him live about 15, 20 years ago now. And they said, he goes, yeah, scientists always say drinking kills brain cells. And I say, you know what? Only the weak ones. The strong ones survive, and those are the only ones I want anyways.
Yeah. Or that could be the mechanism. Probably, in fact, none of those. But one can dream until there is a mechanism. Any is as valid as the other.
That's
a principle religions have used for millennia. Moving on, another interesting study. This one from the Proceedings of the Royal Society in Biological Sciences. This one was done at the University of Waterloo in Canada. And it finds that rich people are dumb and cruel and selfish, which is kind of
self-explanatory.
Not that surprising. So basically, okay, let's explain this study. They did 2,000, I think, over 2,000 people on Amazon's Mechanical Turk, and they asked them to recall a recent interpersonal conflict, and then they asked them 21 questions that were judging, how did you resolve the situation? How did the other person react? What do you think their aim was? Were you satisfied with the outcome? Did you win? What was your motivation? Was it to win? Was it to solve the problem? Was it to make them feel, etc.? And what they were trying, and the other one was they invited a couple hundred people into a lab in person, and then they gave them 3 agony aunt articles. So something people wrote into a newspaper with a problem, and then they were asking them empathy questions such as, how do you think this went? How did people, do you think, did they resolve it? How would you resolve it? That sort of thing. So what they were testing for isn't necessarily empathy. It's wisdom. It's the ability to resolve conflicts, resolve situations,
solve problems.
Exactly. That real problems with other people that are beneficial for everyone involved, rather than you ending up being an asshole. And then they then they analyzed the groups and investigated whether there are any trends. The trend that emerged from this study was that people in lower social classes were much better at resolving conflicts and solving these problems than people in higher social classes.
Okay.
The reasoning behind it, the explanation behind it, whilst not explicitly mentioned alluded to in the article itself, but it kind of makes sense, is that, well, that's not surprising, because if you have people in lower social classes, you tend to have to learn
together
how to. You are one caveat I should say about the study: it didn't look at the extreme wealth or extreme poverty. It looked at your usual spectrum. But I mean, it does make sense, because if you are from a lower social class, you don't necessarily get to pick where you live. It's not necessarily you're detached with a big yard and lawn or whatever, gated community. You are probably cramped in an apartment block or in a densely populated suburb. You have to interact with a lot of people who are maybe not of your ilk or not of your liking. You go to schools with them, you go to work with them, and you just need to learn how to deal with people who are different from you, and be able to coexist. Whilst if you are from the upper classes, you tend to have your own personal space, privacy in your home, deal with your family or people who are very much like you. You go to schools with people who are very much like you, and therefore you never develop those skills, so you end up thinking in a very individualistic, selfish manner, which isn't beneficial to the group as a whole, and therefore the whole, whether that is community, country or world, suffers.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think it shows as well as you'll see that individuals that are normally like on the corporate ladder or hedge fund managers, they tend to try and figure out ways to solve conflicts or something like that with money. They figure if I throw enough money at it, it'll take care of itself and work itself out, instead of actually finding what the underlying issue is and solving that. But
I mean, it kind of, I mean, if you tie these, I mean, we're talking about the decline of the media landscape and why does it almost feel that we're not really progressing as a society? It's
we're regressing.
Yeah, and I'd like to propose, which is what I did last time in the Lost episode, but I'd like to revisit the idea of, we've had, if you recall a few episodes back, it could have been last episode because I don't remember, but a few episodes ago we discussed a similar similar study, which was looking at neurological changes and behavioral changes when people get into a position of power, which shows that there again is a decline in cognition. There is a decline in ability to solve problems because you become isolated. By getting to that position, you have to work with people, etc. See, appease lots of people, find solutions. Once you get into that position, you kind of stop trusting people because you want to keep your position of power, and therefore your ability to reason, your ability to solve problems declines, which kind of seems to suggest that we are doomed, because look, we've had an economical argument against capitalism, of you know the various Paul Krugman, etc. Karl Marx. We had the Marxist argument against capitalism. We have a social argument against capitalism in that social divisions are undesirable as a default, and they're all valid, but they're all I think imperfect criticisms of capitalism because they benefit some people. So yes, social argument against capitalism and Marxist argument against capitalism is that there's social division, which is shit for the people at the bottom of the class system, but it's quite good for the people at the top.
Of course.
Economic arguments against capitalism, yeah, we're not as productive. That's actually more close to none of us, in the long run, none of us benefit.
Yeah.
But I'd like to propose a neurological argument against capitalism.
Okay.
Which is that capitalism inevitably leads to us just being degenerates. Or not necessarily us being degenerates, but the ones who govern us inevitably being degenerates. Capitalism effectively leads to a situation where it is the Homo habilis, precursors of sapiens, ruling Homo sapiens. Because you have, if capitalism is based on investment. You have money, you use it to do something, you grow your wealth.
Yes.
Now, if you have wealth, you have more money to invest. Which is why what you're seeing now is the people who are on the top scale. There's been a study published on this a few weeks ago, where the top 1% of the world's population has now something like 84% of the world's earnings.
Yeah, it is 84%.
The flaw of capitalism, and Thomas Piketty has, although some of his arguments are flawed, this is one of his points that seems to hold true, which kind of is self-evident, is that the more money you have, the more money you have to invest, and therefore the more accelerated your earnings can become.
Okay.
So capitalism inevitably leads to the concept of social class, right?
Yep.
Who does rule in a capitalist society? It's the people at the top of the food chain, the people who have the means, who have the property. That they are the governors, effectively, because they are the ones who have the access to education. They are the ones who have access to influence. So inevitably you end up being ruled by a group of people who are wealthy, who come from this wealthy situation, wealthy background, which, as we have one study now showing, that a very good study, showing that actually leads to ineffective, worsened problem solving and thinking, getting into positions of power, which we have another study showing us that leads to cognitive decline. So effectively, we are picking our leaders from a pool of people who are already degenerate, and by putting them into positions of power, we are making them even more degenerate. And then we're surprised that Trump is president. No, Mr. Trump as president is a natural conclusion of the neurological decline that seems to be the inevitable outcome of a capitalist society. So this is my completely made up, irrational, but in some way I think it makes sense, neurological argument against capitalism.
You can send your capitalistic emails to care of Radovan at jsbspod@gmail.com. You can hit him up on Facebook, facebook.com/jsbspod. You can find us on Twitter @jsbspod or Instagram @jsbspod.
Right, we're going to end up on a hat trick of studies. I'm not going to do the other story because we're running out of time. Okay. But I don't want to end up on such a depressing study.
Well, we're going to get depressing with my guy, so this will be good.
And then my country. So we have to. So I mean, this is the last moment of joy in the entire show. This episode of it, maybe the entire show. Is a study done. By the University of Minnesota, where they looked at children, not in a bad way.
I was going to say, you better preface that, how they looked at children.
They divided children aged 4 to 6 into 3 groups, and basically they were studying conscientiousness, productivity. What motivates children? When do they get work done? So all of the children had a task, a 10-minute computer-based task. It was boring, it was repetitive, but they were told it's really important to do.
Yeah.
And it's very, very helpful. They will benefit a lot of people if they do this task.
Okay.
So the kids knew that this is an important task.
Yeah.
However, in the room where they were doing the task, there was a door which was opened.
Okay.
And through that door was another room which had an iPad loaded with games.
Okay.
And the children had complete freedom to, at any point, abandon their task.
Yep.
And go to the next room and play with the iPad.
Okay.
Now, to remind them, during that 10-minute period, every 1 minute, there was a question that came through the speakers.
Okay.
Which for the first group was, are you being productive?
Okay.
So in this first group, which was normal children, question was, are you being productive? They were doing the task, and over 65% of the kids didn't finish the 10-minute task, went to the other room and started playing games.
Okay.
The second group of kids, the question from the speaker was, is whatever their name is, so if the name was Josh,
Yes.
is Josh being productive?
Okay.
So you change the frame of reference. Instead of looking at yourself, as you, it forces you to look at yourself as a third person, as someone else.
Okay.
And when you do that, there was another interesting study that I might have mentioned a while back, which is if you talk to yourself in third person, you make better decisions.
Yeah, we talked about that 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, and this is similar to that. And as expected, those children actually showed better productivity. More of them maintained the task.
Nice.
The third group
Yeah.
was kind of a variant on this. The third group were asked who their favorite superhero is.
Okay.
And then they were giving the superhero's costume. So if they said, if the kid said Batman, they got a Batman costume.
Did they go and kill their parents, like, behind a theater as well?
Yes.
Okay.
For realism.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
obviously. I mean,
Just making sure that they're actually following the canon.
lesson learned. Read the fucking fine print when you sign the contract. Anyway, so the kids went into the room dressed as the superheroes, so say Batman, and then the question from the speaker was, is Batman being productive? Nearly all of those kids finished the task. Because it was no longer them, it was their superhero, and I'm going, a superhero has to behave to a certain standard. So the answer to Britain's productivity problem is everyone just wears a Batman costume.
But what if they don't like Batman? Can they just dress up with whatever superhero
Okay,
they like?
Wayne Rooney, Harvey Weinstein, whoever you look up to.
Oh, wow. Harvey Weinstein, huh?
You'd be surprised how many people I have seen on the digital world who are like, we were just being a man.
Oh, I saw the same kind of James Franco, Kevin Spacey. The amount of people that, and I don't know if they're trolls. I mean, obviously they could be, but the amount of people that came to defense for some of those people, I just, all I can say is I guarantee they voted for a guy that said, "I just grabbed him by the pussy." I mean, let's be honest. That's just part of how it is.
Angela Merkel.
All right, so as I like to do each and every time we're down at JSBS South, I find an individual who epitomizes the ingenuity and the never say die attitude that has made America such a great place to live. This week we're going to talk about a guy named David Parker Ray. Now, David and his younger sister Peggy lived with their disciplinarian grandfather.
What happened to the parents?
Hold on, I'll get into that. He was sporadically visited by his violent alcoholic father, who would supply him with magazines depicting sadomasochism and other forms of pornography. While he was in high school, he was bullied by his peers for his shyness around girls.
This is going to end well, isn't it?
No, this is going to end really, really bad. In his early 20s, his sexual fantasies of rape and torture and even murdering women developed, and around this time, his sister discovered his sadomasochistic drawings as well as erotic photographs of bondage acts.
What?
Bondage acts. After completing high school, he worked as an auto mechanic, and he received an honorable discharge from the U.S. Army, where he was a service also included work as a general mechanic. Now, David's a bit different when it comes to normal people that kind of go down this route, I think. David, he was a creative individual. And, a lot of times when I'm talking about these people, we get people that, kill people and bury them in their basement. Or they kill people and throw them in Thames. Or the one guy that was flushing the remains down the
Yes.
sink.
Yes. Generally, the British ones tend to be a bit more creative.
Yes, well,
More cramped space. You can't just leave it in a forest because we have none left.
well, David went out to New Mexico and he took a caravan.
Mm.
And he turned that caravan into what could only be classified as a much more violent version of 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay.
It was his torture chamber, which in turn led to his quote unquote serial killer name, the Toy Box Killer.
Echoes of H.H. Holmes there.
A bit, except for instead of having the financial means to con people and that kind of thing, he just decided, I'll go out into the desert. Nobody ever comes here, so it won't be that big of a deal. Let's see. Ray sexually tortured and presumably killed his victims using whips, chains, pulleys, straps, clamps, leg spreader bars, surgical blades, and saws. It is thought that he terrorized many of these women with the tools for many years, with the added assistance of multiple accomplices. Now, bear in mind, he didn't do this alone. Allegedly including several women he was dating inside the torture room, along with numerous sex toys, torture implements, syringes, detailed diagrams showing different methods and techniques for inflicting pain.
So hold on, he had several girlfriends.
Yeah.
Assist him with this.
Yeah.
And they presumably broke up because he had. You're talking about girlfriends. So at some point, some of them have to have broken up, and they. Okay.
All right. Let's see. Dennis Roy Yancey aided Ray and his girlfriend Glenda in the killing of a 15-year-old. His daughter, Glenda Jean Jessie Ray, aided killing victims, was sentenced to 5 years probation for a second-degree kidnapping. And his girlfriend, Cindy, she had 3 children from previous relationships. She had moved to New Mexico to avoid prosecution for forgery, theft, and drug possession. Had helped him to bring him in. Now, his modus operandi was he targeted prostitutes, luring them with some kind of ruse, such as soliciting them or pretending to be a police officer. He would then take them to his homemade torture chamber, which was filled with sex toys. There was also, he had a gynecological table that the victims would be restrained in, and a mirror mounted on the ceiling so they would be able to see themselves being raped and tortured. He also had put together his own little electric torture device. Ray would record the torture either with audio or video and then take trophies such as clothing or jewelry. At least some of the victims were let go after a few days. Ray claimed to have drugged them to make them forget about what happened, and the other ones, the fatal victims, were dismembered and buried and dumped in a lake or dumped in ravines.
How many people are we talking?
Well, they don't know exactly the number of victims because a lot of the victims weren't found. So the best estimates by the FBI's Criminal Bureau of Investigation were somewhere between 14 and 30, 14 and 60.
I mean, that's a lot, but
see, he did what there's
okay. So how many years did he do this for?
He did it over the course of roughly, let's see, it came to an end in March of 1999, and he had bought the trailer in the 50s.
Okay, that's 40 years he was doing this.
Well, that's the biggest problem, is because
50.
they don't really know, like, the span of time that they think, this is hypothetical because they don't know for sure, is somewhere between the 1960s and when he was arrested in March of 1999.
So how was he caught?
Okay, so he was caught because one of the intended victims escaped after being held captive, and she ended up going to some old lady with a mobile home, and she called 911. When police officers arrived, they were already on their way to Ray's address since a 911 call had made from there, but then been interrupted. So she had attempted to escape. In the process of attempting to escape, she called 911. That phone call was interrupted because she was trying to escape. She ran naked to a mobile home, and some old lady said yes, gave her a robe, and then, of course, let her call 911. And then the police, because in the States, if you call 911, they call you back. Mm-hmm. And if you don't answer, they send somebody out to you. Mm-hmm. That's just part of the procedure. And so they were already heading out there trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And then they found the torture chamber, and they found the girl, and she was able to testify and say, this is what was being done to me, and this is where I was at, this is where I was held, and yeah, he was sentenced to 226 years in prison. So.
Long life.
Yeah, well, it's hard because you don't have the amount of people that he actually did, because there's even people out there that say that quite possibly because of the amount of prostitutes that had disappeared over the course of times, he was using the same kind of routine as far as going out to the main highways and arresting, like picking up people there. Honestly, they think that there could be, well over 100 actual victims. They don't know. And of course, he's not going to cop to it because he's one of those people that's just like, okay, so I'm here for 226 years. Cool. Peace out. So Hitler in the box?
I think Hitler in a box still.
Yeah, I know. I know, but still, it was one of those things where he just, for some reason, the toy box cooler had come to mind, and when he did, it made me think of him, so I thought that was a good one to go down as far as. And he has the atypical 3 names, David, Parker, Ray, all first names. It's the same thing that every single professor that I ever had in college said. They'd go, Nicholas Joseph Albert, serial killer or politician? I don't know yet. Give me some time and I'll let you know.
Still time for both.
This is true. This is true. For those of you that aren't watching, there's a look of fear on Radovan's face right now where he questions whether or not he should be
Nick,
locked in a room with me and my dog.
Nick, come on, politics. You're better than that.
Well, I could win the lottery and then just get delusional with myself, and power tends to corrupt. Absolute power tends to corrupt. Absolutely.
All they need is a few bankruptcies and a comb over, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, well, if the hair thins out more, I think I'll be getting it. Although I'd have to put on. Let's see, what is he? He's 6'3", 239 pounds, which I find very hard to believe because I know plenty of people that are over 6 foot tall and 230 pounds. Oh, that's what the doctor said.
Donald Trump is 6'3", 6'3".
Oh, that's what the doctor said.
For those of you who use normal measurement systems, 6'3" is what? It's like 190. 190, yeah, it's 190 centimeters.
Yes.
That's no.
Oh yeah,
it's taller than me.
Oh, according to his doctor, yeah. And the funny thing was, during the campaign, his doctor had said he was 6'2", so he is the only human being on this planet that at 70 plus years old is continuing to grow.
You can grow if you go to space.
He hasn't gone to space.
That you know of.
He hasn't gone to space. He would be the first one to talk about him going to space.
True.
Let's keep that one clear. He'd be like, it was huge. We're going to take over space. We're going to make a new planet. I'm building my new Trump hotel there. It's going to be huge. 1 year later, I'm counting on you. Friend, no matter how the fake news media tries to spin our accomplishments, my administration is continuing to get things done for the American people. We've seen a booming economy, a stronger America, and we're only getting started. I'm ready to make 2018 the greatest year of American prosperity and the strength this country has ever seen. I know you're with me. That's why I need your support now. Will you make a crucial January end-of-month contribution below? Obstructionist Democrats even stopped stooped so low as shutting the government down and holding our military funding hostage for the sake of protecting illegal immigrants. So please, make a crucial end-of-month contribution of just $1 right now to share your support and help my team put up big league numbers to fight the fake news and help vote out the Democrats in November. We believe in this important way to reach our grassroots supporters and the most up-to-date information regarding the efforts of the Republican Party and the President Trump. And we're glad that you're on our team. It's because of the grassroots supports that we will make America great again. And we appreciate your support. Thank you for all you do. I somehow got signed up to the GOP fucking mailing list. It's fantastic. I read it every time it comes. Open rate for me is 100%. I refuse to not open it. And I read it every time. Because all I could think is, yes, this is just fantastic. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1. As we do each and every week, we'd like to take a little trip around the world and see where you should be vacationing. Now, it's not my annual leave that'll be in Morocco, Marrakesh, and Casablanca, or Radovan's that's gonna be Iran. Don't ask. But I ask you, Radovan, where in the world should somebody be planning their 2018 annual leave?
I mean, so when I was originally researching this country,
Yes.
when I was, every a week before the podcast, or the morning of the podcast, I wake up in a hungover, hazed state, and that's when I do my podcast research.
Yes.
Well, this particular morning, I was really worse for wear.
Yeah.
I had an excessive day.
Yeah.
The day before, and so if any one of you has ever been inebriated, drunk, you know that you don't always sleep well.
Oh, no. You usually toss and turn.
Yeah, exactly. So I woke up sort of 7ish. I thought, okay, recording around sort of lunchtime, research a little bit,
take a nap,
do my news stories, do the country. And then just sleep for a few more hours afterwards, and I'll be fresh for the podcast. It's normally what I do anyway.
Yeah.
So I do my news stories. I thought this is quite nice. Let's see what the country is. I've allocated normally I spend if I know the country, I spend a half an hour.
Yeah.
If I don't know it that well, I spend about an hour reading about it. So I opened up the list and saw and just went, oh fuck, oh boy, and didn't sleep. Spend all that time until the podcast reading about this place, because not necessarily because I'm going to relay all that information now, but it's a wormhole. This is. It's difficult for me to discuss the country because Nick always talks about how you don't mess with the Mexican cartels.
Yeah.
That if you say something bad about cross them or that they will come and hunt you down. And so Nick has a healthy respect and doesn't discuss Mexican cartels apart from stuff that everyone agrees on, even them.
Yep. I will never say a negative thing about the cartels as long as I live.
And this is why I'm a bit torn even mentioning this place because even mentioning it gets blood boiling, and the thing is that it might be good for us because we will get thousands of emails if I get any fucking thing wrong or just say the slightest wrong thing in this. So it'll be fun. But for those of you looking for a holiday, the good thing is that this is projected to be the country with the third largest growth in tourism in the world by 2020.
Nice.
So it is a beautiful place, lovely food.
Tons of history.
It has people in it. I think we can all agree that they're all people.
Yeah.
And also, it really should not be a country.
No.
It really shouldn't be a country, and the fact that it exists is either a miracle, a testament to human coexistence, or some mad scientists' sick experiments. Did I say anything wrong so far?
I don't think you've stepped out of line yet. Keyword being yet.
So we are talking about
A man in a trench coat in the dark. A woman's lost a kid sleeping in the park. Rag suits, daggers, Park Avenue. Everybody wants to talk to you about just some BS of there. Just some BS. Just some BS of yours. Just some BS. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS, yeah. Just some BS of ours.